You're listening to the Just Japan Podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan.
All right, folks, it is time for episode 99 of the Munzee Maniacs Podcast, or in this crossover episode number 237, I think, or 6 of the Just Japan Podcast. So everyone out there listening, it's me, Kevin, and if you are a Just Japan Podcast listener, this episode is going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be all about Japan and a fun game you can play in Japan. For the Munzee Maniacs Podcast listeners, it's going to sound a little bit different because it's kind of a crossover episode. But don't worry, it'll be about Munzee, but it's going to be, since it's episode 99, it's going to be kind of about the history of the podcast.
Nostalgic,
a trip down memory lane. That's right.
Back when we both had hair.
Oh, gosh.
That was a long time ago.
That was long before we were playing Munzee.
I think it was long even before Munzee was invented. Or
No, I had some then. And
I've got hair growing out of my ears.
Yeah.
I guess that counts someplace.
All right, I'll keep you guys on track here. So everyone, since this is a bit of a crossover episode, one thing we're going to do. So again, Just Japan Podcast listeners, it's been a hot minute since an episode has come out. A little bit more than a year. So this is a very Japan-related episode, of course, but it's a bit of a twist. And so I'm going to ask both of you guys to just give a quick intro. Now, I know, of course. I think Sarah, you were on the Just Japan Podcast once or twice, maybe.
Way back in the day,
Way back in the day. And PJ was a regular way back in the day. But again, I haven't put out an episode of that podcast in a little bit more than a year. I think it was May 16th, 2025, the last one. So just a very quick introduction just to let the folks know who you are and where you are.
Ladies
Sarah.
first.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a longtime resident of Japan. I've lived here about 27 years.
Okay.
And I'm a private elementary school teacher. And I met Kevin way back in the day. We've been lifelong, or not lifelong, we've been real.
Not quite, but yeah.
Real friends.
Mm-hmm.
He used to teach at the school that my son went to.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how.
And then we eventually. So I was teaching at an international school. You enrolled your son in that school in daycare, and so you were like a parent, and then you actually later became a staff member at that same international school.
Exactly.
And that's how we got to meet. And PJ, who the heck are you?
7 years ago. No, okay. Who am I? I am PJ. I am, like Sarah, been a long-term resident of Japan. Been here 25 plus years. I teach university, and I met Kevin back in the YouTube days. Mm-hmm. When YouTube, when there weren't a lot of native Japanese YouTube content creators, it was primarily foreigners that lived here, long-term residents, such as ourselves.
Yeah.
And we bonded over bad beer and such. And
sometimes good beer.
Yeah, occasionally, on the occasion. And then, and I met Sarah through you.
Yeah.
Now I like her much better than you, but
that's okay. Most people do.
It was a friend of a friend kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. So PJ and I knew each other because we connected through YouTube. We were both YouTube content creators in the early days of YouTube, and we actually met in person. I can remember how weird my wife thought that was when I was like, I'm going to go meet someone else from YouTube, and that we did. It was you and Chris, another content creator. We met up, and then we became friends. Yeah. And we started making collaboration videos, I remember, together back in the days before we had this kind of technology, before we could do things like Zoom. And so we would actually meet in person. We had a YouTube channel for a while called Two Beers in Asia. It's still up there somewhere.
Asia. I love that.
Two Beers in Asia.
Great channel.
And what we would do is we would because because our schedule would only allow us to maybe meet once a month or once every 2 months. So my idea was like to stockpile videos. So in each video, we'd talk about an aspect of life in Japan and review a beer, but we'd end up going and buying a big bag of beer and sitting in a park and then like recording a whole bunch of episodes. And commenters would say like how they could see us like progressively getting drunk as the videos went on. So it was pretty awesome. I got some in a park in Kobe, some at Osaka Joe Cohen, some at my place in Kobe. Yeah. But then years later, I ended up leaving Japan, and we got into Munzee. So, but you know what? I'm curious, guys, for obviously for the Munzee Maniac listeners out there, they know the answer to this question. But for those who are listening on Just Japan Podcast, you're going to hear this weird word, and the word is Munzee. It's not something you would probably find in the Webster Dictionary, Merriam-Webster Dictionary. But what is Munzee, guys?
Sarah?
Oh, well.
See how I passed that off to her?
Yeah, I did.
It's interesting because when we would get together, when you had come back during COVID, and I remember we were meeting up at a restaurant, and PJ had sent a message, "Oh, I'm going to be late because I've got to deploy a Munzee," and Kevin reads this message out loud to me, and I'm like, "What in the heck is Munzee?" And then after we were done, we walked downstairs, and he showed us this little thing, and I'm like, what in the heck is that? And I showed
it to you. Okay. So
yeah. I mean, the three of us were together. PJ had shown it to us, and I was just like, I have no idea what he's talking about. It just went in one ear out the other. And so what it is, it's a game. It's a treasure hunting game, basically. And you're just looking for these QR codes. And it exists in two realms, one in the physical realm and one in the virtual realm. And that's probably basically it in a nutshell, because the game is so complicated, but just the very basics is you're looking for a QR code that can be anywhere. There's a hint within the app, and you use those hints to try and figure out where it is. And then when you find it, you scan it to get points.
And these QR codes are hidden by other players. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a freemium model, so people, if they're interested in trying it, can try it for free. You don't have to spend a penny on the game. A lot of freemium games, you really do have to spend money to play. Munzee, you don't have to. If you're going to be competitive, you do. But I when I ever try to encourage friends or students or whatever to play, I always say, a freemium game, you download it and don't spend any money in the beginning. Play it for a few weeks or months and decide whether you like it, and then decide to go in at what other comfort level you're at. But it's great, because we live in Japan, and all three of us were long timers here. But yet, you get into your cycles. Your neighborhood. Your commute to work. Your famous temple or shrine near you, kind of thing. Whereas what I loved about the game is it would take us out of the beaten path, and we would go to places in the back from our own neighborhoods. I know every back alley, every tiny little park, every little dead end. Yeah. In the northern part of Osaka, which is a huge city, because of the game. So, not only are you going to famous places like temples and shrines and battlefields and yada yada, but you're also going to tiny little restaurants and cafes and little parks that you wouldn't otherwise ever go to. And I think for us, that was one of the loves I had for the game, was like geocaching before it. It provided me an outlet to kind of explore Japan. And this game is played worldwide. It's not Japan-based. It's worldwide based. But for us anyway, it was a way to reconnect with Japan, to see maybe a part of our area we lived in that we'd not otherwise visit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that kind of really kind of connects with segues into talking about kind of the origin of how the three of us ended up playing it. So for those of you who may not know, but you probably do know at the moment, I'm currently based in China for my job, for work. I was in Japan for some time, but left back in 2017, early 2017 for work. But when the pandemic kicked off, just at the very early days of the pandemic, so February of 2020, my family and I came back to Japan. So my wife was from Osaka. Because, we were in China at the time and it was scary. We didn't know what was going on. So there was question marks. We just heard all this, like there was some kind of weird mystery sickness from Wuhan and it was like moving down and around China. So our school, my international school said, if you don't feel safe, it was during the Chinese New Year holiday. So a lot of teachers were already off traveling internationally. And they said, for those people, if you don't feel safe returning to China, you can stay where you are. For those of you who don't feel safe here, you may leave if you want. And we left. We came to Japan and, got an Airbnb. And, everyone knows how things went. But at the end of the day, for me, I was working remotely, but I was an early years teacher. And it was, lots of people were doing foolish stuff with experimentation with like Zoom and teaching. And we pretty quickly realized early years kids on a Zoom call. So I ended up I would be really teaching for about 20 minutes a day online, and then maybe working with meetings and things. And I think companies were trying to keep people busy. Our school was trying to keep some of us busy. So we had busy work online, busy meetings and stuff. But I was really only working maximum 2 hours a day. So I had this whole wide open day to just explore. And PJ, you had introduced me and my family and we went to a park, right? And then you introduced us to the game, me and Kai, my son.
Well, you and I were geocachers back in the day.
That's right. That's right.
And originally in 2013, I was introduced to Munzee, which was almost a completely different game back then, through a Japanese geocacher, and he introduced the game to me. I tried it, but at that time there were maybe 5 or 6 Munzee, which is the things we're hunting for.
Those QR codes, yeah,
QR codes essentially in the city entirely. That was it. So I got those within a few days, and I was done. And I had given up on the game because it just wasn't developed enough to play here. And then a few years later, I think it was 15 or 16, my brother reintroduced the game to me. He lives in the Bay Area, and at that time it was going through a bit of a resurgence in the Bay Area. And so I knew I had played it before, but I had to make a whole new account. I didn't remember anything, and I had to start from scratch. But I started, and I had a great time with it. And so when I came back just prior to you having to, it was 2018, I think, I just decided to, what is it, Field of Dreams? Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
So I was bored out of my mind, and geocaching is a wonderful game. I'm not throwing any, not casting aspersions on it at all, but just that I had tired of the game because I had got everything in my area.
Yeah, you cashed out. You cashed out. You got everything there was.
Pretty
right?
much.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to start building it, and no one was playing, essentially. It was just me putting stuff out. And I enjoyed that. My OCD is very visually based, so I could make a map and make my designs and, create my universe of however I wanted to. And when you came back for COVID, you and I initially, you and your family, we went to the castle to geocache. But while we were there, I showed you a few Munzee. And you just took to it like a fish to water. I did.
Yeah, I did. I got real obsessive about it. And I think the thing with me, I had my phase. I had my phase for a while, several years where I was like a marathon runner and I was running marathons.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always just been like an epic walker. I love walking. I just love being outside, exploring. So I've always been into that. Like I'm always having a camera with me and taking photos and posting them to social media. So it was just like another fun thing to do while I was going to be doing all that anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I got into it, and then I started kind of just growing that part of Osaka where I was in. We introduced it to Sarah. Sarah started growing her area of.
It's funny because initially Sarah played very lightly. She thought the two of us were loons.
Yes.
And then
now she became the looniest
as any of us.
It's true, though. It is true.
It's true, Sarah. Say something.
I mean, yeah. Japan is a country known for its beauty, traditions, and some of the most chilling legends you've ever heard. I'm Kevin O'Shea, the host of Supernatural Japan, a podcast that dives deep into the country's darkest corners. Each episode brings you spine-tingling ghost stories, forgotten true crime cases, and eerie folklore, all wrapped in rich cultural and historical context. We explore haunted temples in the heart of Tokyo, mysterious disappearances in the shadow of Mount Fuji, and legends of yokai, spirits, and vengeful ghosts that still haunt Japan's forests, back streets, and abandoned places. Whether you're obsessed with true crime, fascinated by the supernatural, or simply curious about the eerie side of Japanese culture, Supernatural Japan will leave you looking over your shoulder. New episodes every week. Search for Supernatural Japan on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, some stories were never meant to be forgotten. So, I mean, for me, of course, and I was in Japan, and I was hardcore while I was in Japan, but then I went back to China, and we realized, it was just much harder to play in China and build at the time, especially just because of like map offsets and VPNs and having to use all that stuff in China. I think like with geocaching too, those kind of geolocation games are really hard to play in China because the Chinese government doesn't want people having accurate GPS stuff, and so now I guess we think about, and by the way, I was always playing too, well, not always, but often with Kai, my son, and at the time he would have been 10 years old, or actually 9 when he was introduced to it. Mm-hmm. So Batman Kai is his handle, and we had a lot of fun together. But let's talk about the podcast for a little bit, and then we can kind of go off in different directions. Sure. So this podcast, and again, this is a crossover episode, but we're speaking as episode 99 of the Munzee Maniacs podcast. And to be honest, if we had been consistent, probably up to close to 200 now. But I was thinking about how the podcast happened, or kind of the genesis of it, and it was both you and I, Pete. So I was podcasting already, actually. Yes. The Just Japan podcast was my podcast, and then I had other ones as well that would come and go, but. PJ, you got me into this game, and we would talk about it obsessively too. We would get together and we would be walking around like drinking beers and talking
for hours.
About it. Yeah. And then I can remember saying, and at that time there were no podcasts, nothing about Munzee, right? Like I was searching high and low, and lots about geocaching. And some really good ones.
Some really professional level ones. Yeah.
And just really ones I really enjoyed, like the geocaching podcast, and there was a million others. But then I remember saying to you and saying to Kai, and having my 9-year-old confidant to bounce ideas off of, but he has good ideas. I was like, if we're this into talking about this game, I guarantee that there would be players who would want to listen to people talking like this about the game. I think that's really what it came down to in a nutshell. And I remember we recorded the first episode from I was in Taisha Ward, staying at an Airbnb. And it was not that long, just a few weeks before we went back to China. We recorded the first couple of episodes and I think the first episode was like, what is Munzee?
Yeah. And we were still relatively amateur players.
Yeah.
We weren't even into clans at that time, or guilds. Yeah. And so I think the one part of the charm, if there was any charm, and it's arguable, but if there was
pretty newbie-ish themselves.
And so we had that excitement, like young children on Christmas Day, kind of. There was that joy of discovering new things, and the game was just beginning to go through a lot of change, which it continues to do at a rapid pace. But at that time, it was just beginning to really kick off. The changes that they were making, many for the better, I think. But we were excited about it, and we wanted to share that with other people. But I think, sadly, just you and I talking. We needed Sarah. We needed a different person.
We needed a third voice. Absolutely.
A reasonable, although I would argue she's far less reasonable these days. But originally, the attraction was that she was the reasonable person, different than the hardcore players you and I were. Now I think it's me and her, and you're the reasonable one.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you want to say anything on that?
I'll be nice. I still think I'm the reasonable one.
Okay. Well,
Okay. Sure.
But I do remember back in the day when I'd get like a brand new I'd cap something and I'd take a screenshot and send it off to you guys.
Yep.
Look what I got, and it was fun. It was super fun. But now it's like, oh yeah, I got something new.
Well, now we're hardcore players.
We're hardcore players, and
we wouldn't be hardcore players.
Crusty and salty about it now too.
Yeah, well, we both go through our phases, don't we?
So I'm looking here. I'm just looking through the back catalog, and the first episode of the Munzee Maniacs podcast came out on November 3rd, 2020, and then we were doing it weekly for a while. And then episode number 10 is when Rob came on, Rob himself. So for those
I remember that.
You'll hear this name Rob a lot. Rob is the CEO of Munzee. And he has, and he came on the podcast. I remember that was an extremely exciting thing. I remember filming that in my classroom in Shenzhen at night, and Kai was there because Batman Kai wanted to be.
I remember that.
Kai appeared in quite a few episodes in the beginning. He didn't always have a lot to add, but everyone thought it was super cute that he was involved. He had a little squeaky voice then. Not even squeaky at that point. It was
not even.
Yeah, he was a 10-year-old kid. And it was
now he's a grumpy teenager, but
Yeah, well, not that grumpy. He's always been pretty.
Well, he's more positive than most teenagers.
Yeah, he is. It's kind of he's got more of a positive spirit than a lot. Yeah. But yeah, so Sarah came in, and I'm trying to, I don't know, I'll maybe at some point as we're talking, I'll scan through and try to figure out what episode.
I think I came in like just every so often as like a
initially, you were just once in a while, and then
we decided we wanted to be a regular host.
To come in like all the time, and
it was just easier. I think with the three of us, I think there's a certain natural a vibe, and
it's just we have more perspectives into the game. I think that's what it comes down to, right? And so I'm curious to kind of go back to thinking from the Just Japan podcast lens here now, as people who are maybe coming to Japan for a holiday, they're interested in moving to Japan at one point, or maybe they're in Japan now. For those folks who are in Japan right now, where are the hot spots in Japan for playing the game, and what do other areas look like? So obviously you're in Osaka, PJ. Sarah, you're in Akashi, which is part of the Kansai. I was in Osaka when I was playing as well. So it's pretty safe to say. And we had over the course of this game that we've been playing, there have also been kind of ebbs and flows, but there was a certain point where there was a bit of a critical mass, and there were a fair number of active players that were growing.
Almost 20, not quite, but almost.
Yeah. So for people who are curious about coming to Japan to play, or are in Japan and are listening to this and like, hey, maybe I will go to the App Store and download and type in Munzee, Munzee, and download this game. Where are the best places, or the kind of biggest places to play?
Well, clearly the Kansai, just because I was introduced to it from Astro Bird, who was that's his.
I remember Astro Bird. Yeah, that's the well-known geocacher. Yeah. And
at that time, there were maybe several dozen in Tokyo, but there were 4 or 5 in Osaka, and then I started going nuts. And then because of COVID, you were here, and like if you pointed out, you were a walker with lots of time and an obsessive personality, and you covered the northern part of the city. Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm now reeking in because of the cruises.
Nice.
But definitely, I would say Osaka, Kobe, Kyoto, that triangle has 90% of the Munzee in Japan. I mean, there's lots everywhere. And one of the beauties, if people are listening to the game and maybe they've tried listening to the podcast, and maybe they don't know Munzee, or they do, but they played it years ago and just didn't give it a go. One of the things which I initially had trouble with, but now quite love, is that you can cap greenies again and again and again and again. That's the basic physical QR code. And what that means is wherever you're visiting, you can cap your own, so that you can, if you are visiting a small backwater onsen town in Japan and there's nothing there, you can deploy 10 or 15 of these and then cap them every day you're there. So, and again, it took me a while to come around to this, but once I realized this allows people to play whether there's other players in the vicinity or not.
Yeah.
But in terms of points, you need other players. And Osaka, the Kansai area has a lot. Thousands and thousands. In fact, now, Sarah and I are kind of in a month-to-month battle. And now we talk about hundreds of thousands of points. Whereas, remember, when Kevin was initially here during the COVID period, we get excited if we got to 1,000.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, like, there was at one point where, and I think at that point we weren't playing the virtual game so much. So that's another element of the game. There's these physical QR codes, which are called greenies, or, they're called Munzees, which you can capture. We say cap. But there's also virtuals, which you can deploy, but people from anywhere in the world can deploy them anywhere in the world. So that's one of the great things about the Munzee community is people help grow the map and grow the game. And that was one of the advantages of having this podcast, is that through this podcast, people learned about us and people just started growing the map for us, which then just made it
tremendously growing the map.
Yeah, incredibly, and we had, back in the early days of the podcast, Rob was absolutely thrilled that now there was an audio voice. There was a voice out there, people talking about Munzee. Now, obviously, there was another podcast, the official Munzee podcast with Rob and Craig. But before that,
they weren't there. Yeah,
they weren't there. And so, there was people were just helping grow that map. So I guess, that's the answer. Anyone, if you are listening and you are in the Kansai area, or, check it out, or no matter where
anywhere
you are,
in Japan, check it out. You'll be surprised what's on the map.
Yeah, because there's always Munzee players travel.
I'm actually looking at the map, and I'm really surprised how few there are in Tokyo, to be honest.
Well, yeah, we've been unfortunate
in my small neighborhood than there is in all of Tokyo.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Well, that's in part because you also be crazy. So, let's face it, where you're part of Akashi is so, it's so full. You can tell where she is and I am because it's chock-a-block.
But it wasn't it wasn't just like you guys too. There's other players have really gotten into it. So at the
visitors and podcast listeners.
But even at the height of the game in the Kansai area, so even 21, 22. There were some players in the south of Osaka that were just covering the map with Munzees. There was a few players down there. There was a family.
That family in Nara.
In Nara, Kyoto area, where there was a family and they had 4 or 5 teenage children.
And they were heavily outdoor hiking.
They were hardcore outdoor fitness type people. I just remember that the one time I went to a meetup with them. We went and it was just it was insane watching them play. They were just running all over the park, just throwing greenies everywhere. I was like, wow, this is really intense. And then
very high energy, very friendly, very active players.
And it was really fun watching them grow the map, because that benefited everyone.
Remember, we used to joke when they would come through our neck of the woods because it wasn't one player, it was 7 players and active, hardcore active, so that you would get 300 or 400 hits that day if they were just walking through your neighborhood.
Yeah.
They were very, very active, and they still are, but they're playing in several parts of the world right now. So not as much as before, but they're still active. And
the family have left Japan, and also their children went from being teenagers to adults, some of them, and off they've gone to do as what happens. People leave the nest, right? But it's just that's another aspect of the game, folks listening. If you're new to it, is that if you haven't played before, is that you get points by capturing Munzees yourself, but you also get points when other players capture your Munzees.
Yeah.
So that's where the fun benefit would always come. And then all of a sudden your phone's getting all these crazy alerts, and we'd be giddy, like, oh, they're going through. Yay. They're the family's moving through our area. It was always lovely. Yeah. So I think one of the interesting things about the game too, that PJ touched on earlier, and it's a thing that we've talked about over the years of doing this podcast, is that this is a game that gets us to go to places that we normally never would go to, probably. And I know, Sarah, that's one thing for you, for example, is you always take fantastic sunset photos that you share with us on our little WhatsApp group. You always take these really gorgeous sunset photos, but I know there was a period where you were just like hitting all the beaches, like, you were like, kind of Kobe, Suma, all like your area, and, putting Munzees out in those places. But what are the kind of places, what are those places that you maybe, the game has taken you that maybe you wouldn't have before gone to?
Actually, the one spot that I always come back whenever somebody asks me this question is, so I used to live in downtown Osaka, really close to where PJ is. I mean, it's really silly is that for several years we lived super close to each other. We didn't even know each other. And there's this bookstore that's just outside of the downtown Umeda area. So Umeda is a main train hub, and it's a metropolitan area with a lot of shopping and stuff. And since I lived so close, I used to ride my bike and walk that area a lot, and I knew it really well. And behind this big bookstore that I loved to go to because it was just so gigantic, is a little tiny shrine that I had no idea was there, because I never turned right. Instead, I always just went back to Umeda, and I didn't take those little tiny back streets. And I love shrines, and I love the beach, and I love sunsets and all that kind of stuff. But all of a sudden, behind this big building that I had been to 1,000 times, was this really unique, little tiny shrine just in the middle of the city. And
it's the one where all the cats hang out, right?
Yep, it is.
I love that one.
And so and it was because PJ stuck a greenie there. That's what we call the physical stickers.
So you went to capture that QR code, and
I went to go capture that, and I discovered something absolutely amazing. So the same thing can be said is like you were talking about with the beaches, is that I was trying to go catch some sunsets, because absolutely the sunsets in this area in the wintertime are just fantastic.
Yeah.
And so along my way, as I'm walking, just taking pictures, I'm placing greenies at the same time. And so you can kind of see where I've been walking and taking pictures just by looking at the beach. So
that reminds me of like one time we were, so my son and I were in Japan a couple of years ago, maybe it was 2023. And we were heading down to south of Osaka because there was, loads of Munzees down there, and we got on the wrong train. And we just like blew right through Yao and out into the countryside. And we're like, oh, this is the wrong train. And like we looked, was that the place? Or maybe I was with my family a different time. And we looked, I just opened the Munzee map, and just in the middle of nowhere, there was like a little shrine, and PJ had put a Munzee there. And it was just like kind of, we're like laughing, like, what is this? Like in the middle of nowhere, there's this little shrine, and clearly he's been there, and he's put a Munzee. I was like, oh, but I know that PJ, you've always been a big fan of castles and shrines, and I think that's
castles, shrines, and temples. Yeah, traditional architecture I really like.
And you've been actually on the Just Japan podcast before, talking about how that your love of these structures and the history of them has actually been one of the things that has gotten you out moving around and exploring Japan. So it's just another one of these things for curious people who like to move, and maybe for people who don't like to stop moving, to get in and do things.
And I have to say, Japan is a perfect place for it, because in terms of stranger danger, that kind of crime is very minimal here. I live in a city of roughly 10 million people, and I go out at 3 a.m. in the back alleys in the factory towns and the port, and I don't ever have to fear for my safety. And Munzee is a great game, but when I play it in America, you always have that sixth sense to be a little bit careful of your surroundings and where you are and the neighborhood and your position vis-a-vis other people in that area.
You have to have that situation. You have to have situational awareness about
Yes.
you when you're in America or Canada.
Whereas Japan, I mean, like I said, I'm playing at 3 a.m. in a back alley with no lights on, and it's not a problem. To me, it's one of the few countries in the world maybe that you can get out and get lost and be safe getting lost. And Munzee is a perfect, like any other geolocation game, is perfect for that, to get out there and to go to places that, you're going to hit your famous temples and shrines, you're going to hit your famous castles, what have you. But you're also going to, if you're playing one of these games like Munzee, you might go to a back alley that's got a tiny little cafe or a little bookstore or whatever, and people are going to go to. And because of the game. And that's, you can do so without fear here.
Yeah, absolutely.
At most, you'll be muggled. And, someone who doesn't play the game might wonder what you're doing and maybe rip off the sticker or whatever.
Yeah.
But no one's going to assault you or accost you.
But you know what? That leads me to I got a segue here, PJ, because
segue.
You did have an incident a few nights ago or a few weeks ago in a park.
I did.
Where you potentially could have met some motorcycle gangsters or people who sounded like them. There's a term in Japan. Once upon a time, especially during the 80s, there were these motorcycle gangsters called the Bosuzoku who have a very unique sounding motorcycles in Japan. Tell us about this encounter you had, PJ.
Well, to set it up a little bit, the Bosuzoku are teenagers usually, and they have motorbikes, either mopeds all the way up to full-on motorcycles without mufflers or with variable mufflers, so that they can turn them on and off. And it's a long story short, but the Yakuza uses these groups to sometimes create attention or annoyance in particular neighborhoods. It's relatively harmless. They're not harming mostly people, especially these days. They're not anything they used to be in the bubble. But the point is, there are groups of teenagers moving about, and they brum, 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 and they, like, let's say a local politician or a local company might cast aspersions on an organized criminal unit in the area. So suddenly they'll pay these teenage gangs to go and make noise in the middle of the night.
And let me hold on a second. I'm going to make a sound clip. I'm going to play something here just from YouTube, and you can hear the unique sound of the Bosuzoku motorcycle. Let's see. I'm just going to play something here. Maybe this will do it. I'm going to play a YouTube short.
Play away.
Yeah. So that's. Did you guys?
We're not hearing it on our end, but I'm assuming they are.
Oh, you know what? I think my microphone's canceling that out. Never mind. Yeah. Okay. Oh well. Yeah. It's
add it in later if you can.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like nee.
Yeah. People get brum 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 brum, and again, I don't want to belittle it, because there were issues of violence and threats around it. I don't want to ignore that, but. Especially for foreigners, these were largely just annoyances in certain cities. But in any case, that it's really gone down.
Yeah, there's not many around anymore. Yeah.
No, it still happens, but it's just in smaller scale.
Yeah.
Like in Noda, where I live in Fukushima, they still do it on the weekends, but it's like 5 of them, not 400 of them.
Yeah.
And they do it for 10 minutes before the police say, go away. And they do. In any case, so I was out. It was I like to do a late night Munzee run in my broader neighborhood. I get on my bicycle, and I pedal around for a couple hours in the middle of the night. Strange as I am, and no, that's not wrong. And so it's about 1:30 or 2 in the morning, maybe closer to 1, and I'm out across the river. Northern part of the city where Kevin was during the COVID period. And I'm capping up all of those old cruisies, which are old greenies, which have gone out of date, and you get extra points for capping for new players. For regulars, you're going, I know that, PJ. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so I'm out in the back alley, and it's quiet. This part of the city is shockingly quiet at 1 a.m. There's nothing. And I hear in the distance that the motorcycle.
Hold. Does this sound like? Let's see. Do you hear that?
Nope.
No. Oh, interesting. My microphone's really impressive. I'm like holding my phone up, folks, to the microphone, but I guess it cancels that out. All right.
It's screening. It thinks that's extraneous noise.
Yeah, it does. Exactly.
Anyway, it's just mufflerless revving on a motorbike or moped, depending on. Anyway, but I hear the sound, but it's kind of quiet and tinny. And I go, what is that? And I'm in a little neighborhood park. And Japan has tons of little parks because most apartments are very small and people don't have the yard space that you might have in North America.
Yeah.
So there's lots of little parks. Sometimes they're just a few yards. Sometimes they're several blocks, whatever. But I'm in one and I'm capping some of these Munzee. And I'm on my bike and I'm scanning through and I hear this sound coming. Vroom, 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 vroom. But it sounds weird and I can't quite place it. And then across the park from me, about a half a block away, 2 teenage boys, I'm guessing senior high school, maybe 15, 16-ish, were on what we call mama charis, which are mother bicycles. They're not on racers or mountain bikes or street,
They're on mommy bikes.
Yeah, they're on mommy bikes. And one boy is holding his smartphone, which I assume to be an iPhone, but I couldn't tell. A smartphone in the air, broadcasting a audio recording of a Bosozoku gang revving up. Vroom, 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 vroom. He's on a mommy bike without gears or without artifice in any way. And he and his buddy are holding this like knights on Monty Python, the Life of Brian. They're holding it forward and cheering and nobody's on the street. It's 1:30 in the morning or whatever it is. At the time, I'm in shock for this because I've never.
What am I seeing? I can't process this, huh?
They're imitating being in a bicycle gang, but they're not. They're in high school on their mom's bikes, and just 2 of them. And
way past their bedtime.
Way past, and at the same time I'm doing this, I'm scanning in one of those QR codes that Sarah mentioned, and it flashes because it's too dark. They see the flash and look over on the opposite side of the park and see me. And again, nobody's out at 1:30 in the morning in this neighborhood. So they stop, they get off their bike.
Let alone a 6'1" or 6'2" bald foreign man.
Old white man sitting there, my dome is the shiniest thing in the park at this point. And so one of the boys, the one who was holding the smartphone up, making the sound, I call him the leader. And he put his phone in the basket of the bike, and then he flexed his arms like a muscle builder would and just yelled out loud, "Oh!" And while he's flexing like Arnold Schwarzenegger, again, he's 300 or 400 feet away. Now, in America, I'd be in trouble. But
true. This is the point where you get assaulted and robbed.
Exactly. But this is the one country it happened, but it's extremely rare. And so I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. So without thinking, and probably still not wise, even where I was, I imitated his action. And I went, "Oh!" as I flexed my tremendous muscles. And they were just so aghast with giddiness. They went, "Woo!" And they were clapping and cheering and jumping in the air. And all I was thinking is, please don't come over. Please don't come over. Please don't come over. because though I speak Japanese, not nearly at the level that I would take to extricate myself from what seemed to be.
What words do I use to extricate myself from this situation?
What is that movie between the West End? What's that West End Broadway gang musicals? That the.
Oh,
you know what
God.
I mean?
West Side Story?
Yeah, West Side Story. This is with them.
That's for all of our young listeners. That's for all of our young listeners out there, guys.
I certainly felt like this was West Side Story because they were jumping like schoolgirls, and so they just waved at me, and I waved back, and then they got on their bikes, and the leader took out his phone again and held it above his head and pressed play, and it boom, 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 again on the iPhone or Android, whatever it was. And then they just went on. And I just continued.
And imagine the tale they had to tell at high school the next morning about their fearsome encounter.
Was there gang warfare in the local park? I don't know how they would tell
with a gang of foreigners.
But my propensity to exaggerate. I am genuinely not exaggerating anything from this story. It was just one of the weird, charmy parts of being in Japan at 1 a.m. in the morning in a big city where no one's going to harm you. And they were just expressing their, God knows, they're just playing. And here we were, and what was I in? This is insanity. But I wouldn't have that moment
experience
if it weren't for Munzee. Geolocation games get you out into the community, and you're playing locally, and you wouldn't do that otherwise. And that's just, I'll never forget that. I kept that instinct, that part of my. That animal part of my brain kept saying, danger, danger. But I'm going, there's no danger here. They're on mommy bikes. And I mean, I was on a machadi myself, but mine had gears and was... Anyway, I could easily have...
outrun them if you needed to.
Yeah. I could have got away and if I needed to run. And frankly, they were 10 pounds wet. But...
when the kid was flexing, it must have been terrifying then.
Well, I think they thought I was taking a picture of them because the phone flashed when it was scanning.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a camera, it was, the scanner. But they just rode away. They were happy that they had defended their territory or whatever, like a real gang might.
Yeah.
And I just, if I could sing, I would have broke out into song at that point. And it would.
I'm proud of them. I think they did a good job.
I was too. Osaka represented that night.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, so there we go. So the episode 99 and a little bit about our origin story as for Munzee. For those who might be new to the Munzee Maniacs podcast, and for those who are listening on the Just Japan podcast feed, some tales of Japan, and we're hopefully introducing you to potentially a game that you could play while you're here, or if you're already in Japan. Maybe you live in Kyoto, you live in Osaka, you live in Nara or somewhere, or you're in Tokyo. You can go download this game. We're not being paid to say this. It's just one of the things we always say is that we want more people to play because when other players are out there, they build that map and it makes it more fun for us, right? It's just more fun when you have more people playing the game. So yeah, I know it's getting pretty late where you guys are. Sarah, do you have anything to add? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I can't top that Bazooka story.
Well, neither can I. Yeah, I can't either.
That doesn't happen every day.
And I love it, and I hope that anybody who's listening is interested in the game, and would love to join us and just start capping. Open it up. There's a great tutorial now. Used to be really not so great, but thank you to the Munzee headquarters staff. It's really it's completely changed, and it's super easy to onboard into the game.
Yeah.
And if you are looking for some advice, you can always in-app message me or PJ and or Kevin himself too, and we can point you in the right direction. So.
And nowadays there's the official Munzee podcast, which they're far more regular than we are, and they come out every week. And so if you're interested in this or any geolocation game, I recommend giving them a check out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I would love to see cross-pollination. The Japan podcast people, Just Japan, get into play a geolocation game. If Munzee is not for you, then try
geocaching
Pokemon Go or geocaching. Yeah,
Pokemon Go is getting, actually, that's an interesting thing. My son was telling me how it's like Pokemon Go has actually been growing and getting a lot bigger recently.
It does seem to be. It was going through a downturn. It seems to have turned back around. Yeah.
So even in the States now, it's getting bigger. I think just anything Pokemon now. Pokemon, as people are getting so crazy about Pokemon. So that's it, folks. So thanks for listening, and have a great day or evening wherever you are, and check the links in the show notes, guys. We'll have some stuff there, how you can reach us and contact us, and we'll put our Munzee usernames in there as well.
Yes.
All right, and you can find us on social media. Maybe see some of those cool sunset pictures that Sarah's been talking about, and lots of cool pictures of shrines and really delicious looking food on PJ's feed on Instagram.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, take care, guys. Well, yeah, and see you later. Bye.
Bye. Bye.